The journal fell from my hands, its pages fluttering to the floor like the shattered pieces of my heart. I couldn't believe what I'd just read. My husband Ethan, the man I'd loved and supported for over a decade, had been plotting to sabotage my career. "Anne? Are you home?" Ethan's voice echoed from downstairs, jolting me back to reality. I scrambled to gather the loose pages, shoving them back into the leather-bound book. My hands trembled as I tucked it away in my bedside drawer. Taking a deep breath, I called out, "Up here, honey!" Footsteps approached, and Ethan appeared in the doorway, his familiar scent of coffee and cologne filling the room. "Hey, I thought we could grab dinner tonight, that new Italian place downtown?" I forced a smile, my mind reeling from what I'd discovered. "Sure, sounds great. Just give me a minute to freshen up." As I turned to the mirror, I caught a glimpse of Ethan's reflection. His eyes, once filled with warmth and admiration, now held a coldness that sent a chill down my spine. How long had he been harboring these feelings? "Everything okay?" he asked, his tone casual but laced with something I couldn't quite place. "Fine," I lied, applying a fresh coat of lipstick. "Just a long day at work. The new collection is really taking off." Ethan's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "That's great, honey. You're really making waves in the fashion world." I searched his face for any hint of the resentment I'd read about, but his expression remained neutral. As we headed out, my phone buzzed with a text from my mother, Leah. "How are things, sweetie? Still on for lunch tomorrow?" I typed a quick reply, grateful for her constant support. If only she knew the turmoil brewing beneath the surface of my seemingly perfect life. At the restaurant, Ethan and I sat across from each other, an invisible chasm stretching between us. The waiter arrived, breaking the tension momentarily. "I'll have the chicken parmesan," Ethan said, barely glancing at the menu. "And for the lady?" the waiter asked, turning to me. "The grilled salmon, please," I replied, my appetite all but gone. As we waited for our food, Ethan leaned back, his eyes fixed on a point somewhere over my shoulder. "So how's the writing going?" I asked, desperate to fill the silence. His gaze snapped back to me, a flicker of something dark passing across his face. "It's fine. Nothing as exciting as your fashion empire, of course." The bitterness in his voice was unmistakable now. I felt a surge of anger rising within me. How dare he resent my success when I'd done nothing but support his dreams? "Ethan, is something wrong?" I pressed, unable to contain myself any longer. "You've been different lately." He shrugged, his expression carefully neutral. "I don't know what you're talking about, Anne. Everything's fine." Before I could respond, a familiar voice called out, "Anne, what a surprise!" I turned to see Blake, my former colleague, approaching our table. His warm smile was a stark contrast to the icy atmosphere between Ethan and me. "Blake, it's great to see you," I said, genuinely happy for the interruption. Ethan's eyes narrowed as Blake and I chatted briefly about work. When Blake finally bid us goodbye, promising to catch up soon, I could feel the tension radiating off Ethan in waves. "Old friend?" he asked, his voice tight. "Just a colleague from my early days in the industry," I explained, suddenly feeling defensive. The rest of the meal passed in strained silence, the weight of unspoken words hanging heavy between us. As we drove home, I couldn't shake the feeling that everything was about to change. Back in our bedroom, I watched Ethan as he got ready for bed, searching for any sign of the man I'd fallen in love with. But all I saw was a stranger, his face a mask of indifference. As I lay awake that night, Ethan's soft snores beside me, I made a decision. I would confront him, demand answers about what I'd read in that journal. But first, I needed a plan. Tomorrow I'd call Blake. If anyone could help me navigate this minefield, it was him. Little did I know that decision would set in motion a chain of events that would change my life forever. I woke up the next morning with a knot in my stomach, the weight of Ethan's journal still heavy on my mind. As I got ready for work, I could hear him moving around downstairs, the silence between us stretching like a chasm. "I'm heading out," I called, grabbing my keys. No response. Sighing, I made my way to the kitchen. Ethan sat at the table, hunched over his laptop, fingers flying across the keyboard. He barely glanced up as I entered. "Ethan, did you hear me? I said I'm leaving." He grunted, eyes still fixed on the screen. "Have a good day." The coldness in his voice sent a chill through me. This wasn't the man I married. As I drove to work, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was losing him, piece by piece. At the office, I threw myself into my work, desperate for a distraction. But even as I reviewed designs and approved marketing plans, my mind kept drifting back to Ethan's journal. My phone buzzed, startling me out of my thoughts. It was a text from Marion, Ethan's mother. Anne, dear, dropping by for dinner tonight. See you at 7. I groaned inwardly. Marian's visits were always a source of tension, her critical eyes finding fault in everything from my cooking to my career choices. As I drove home that evening, dread settled in my stomach. I walked in to find Ethan and Marian already in the living room, their hushed conversation stopping abruptly as I entered. Anne, darling. Marian's voice dripped with false sweetness. How lovely to see you. I hope you don't mind, I brought a casserole. I know how busy you are with your little fashion projects. I forced a smile. Thank you, Marian. That's very thoughtful. Ethan remained silent, his eyes fixed on the floor. The tension in the room was palpable. As we sat down to eat, Marian launched into her usual litany of thinly veiled criticisms. Anne, dear, don't you think it's time you focused more on your home life? Ethan tells me you're hardly ever here anymore. I felt a surge of anger. My career is important to me, Marian, and Ethan has always been supportive of that. Ethan's head snapped up, his eyes flashing. Have I? Maybe I'm tired of playing second fiddle to your ambitions. The bitterness in his voice shocked me into silence. Marian smiled, a triumphant glint in her eye. Now, Ethan, she cooed, I'm sure Anne doesn't mean to neglect you. She's just driven. I stood up abruptly, my chair scraping against the floor. Excuse me, I muttered, fleeing to the kitchen. As I leaned against the counter, trying to catch my breath, I heard Marian's voice drift in from the dining room. You see, Ethan, this is what happens when a woman puts her career before her family. It's not natural. I felt tears pricking at my eyes. How had things gotten so bad? When had Ethan started confiding in his mother instead of me? Suddenly, Ethan appeared in the doorway, his face a mask of conflicting emotions. Anne, he began, his voice low. I think we need to talk. I steeled myself, ready for another confrontation. But before Ethan could continue, Marian's shrill voice interrupted. Ethan, darling, come help me with my coat. I think it's time I headed home. Ethan hesitated, looking torn. Then, without a word, he turned and left the kitchen. I stood there, alone and shaken, listening to the murmur of their voices in the hallway. When I heard the front door close, I waited for Ethan to return, to finish what he'd started to say. But he didn't come back. Instead, I heard his footsteps on the stairs, followed by the soft click of our bedroom door closing. In that moment, surrounded by the remnants of our disastrous dinner, I felt more alone than ever. The man I loved was slipping away, and I didn't know how to stop it. As I mechanically cleared the table, my resolve hardened. Tomorrow, I decided, I would call Blake. I needed an ally, someone to help me make sense of the mess my life had become. Little did I know, that decision would set in motion a chain of events that would change everything. The next morning, I woke to an empty bed. Ethan had left early, avoiding another awkward encounter. I sighed, rubbing my temples, the weight of our crumbling marriage pressed down on me like a physical force. My phone buzzed. It was my mother, Leah. Sweetie, don't forget our lunch date today. I've got a surprise for you. Despite everything, I smiled. Mom always knew how to lift my spirits. At the quaint cafe where we often met, I spotted her immediately. Her warm smile was a stark contrast to Marian's cold smirk from the night before. Anne, darling. She enveloped me in a hug. You look exhausted. Is everything all right? I hesitated, then the words tumbled out. I told her everything. The journal, Ethan's resentment, Marian's visit. By the time I finished, tears were streaming down my face. Mom listened intently, her brow furrowed with concern. Oh, honey, she said, squeezing my hand. I'm so sorry you're going through this. Have you talked to Ethan about it? I shook my head. I don't know how. He's so distant, Mom. It's like he's a different person. She nodded thoughtfully. Marriage isn't easy, Anne, but communication is key. You need to tell him how you feel. I know, I sighed. But what if it's too late? Mom's eyes softened. It's never too late to fight for what you love. Now, enough heavy talk. I have something to cheer you up. She pulled out an envelope and handed it to me. Inside was a weekend pass to a luxury spa retreat. Mom, this is too much, I protested. She waved me off. Nonsense. You need this, Anne. Take some time for yourself. Clear your head. As I hugged her goodbye, I felt a glimmer of hope. Maybe a weekend away was exactly what I needed. Back at home, I found Ethan in his study, hunched over his laptop. Ethan, I called soft, can we talk? He looked up, his eyes guarded. What about? I took a deep breath. I was thinking, maybe we could use a break. Get away for the weekend? His face hardened. Some of us don't have the luxury of taking breaks, Anne. My writing doesn't pay for itself, you know. The bitterness in his voice stung. I just thought. You thought what? He snapped. That you could wave your magic wand and fix everything? Not everything revolves around you and your perfect life, Anne. I recoiled as if he'd slapped me. Ethan, please, I'm trying here. What happened to us? For a moment, his eyes softened, then the wall slammed back down. Nothing happened. This is who we are now. Deal with it. He turned back to his laptop, effectively dismissing me. I fled the room, my heart pounding. In our bedroom, I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and dialed Blake's number. Anne? His voice was warm, concerned. Is everything okay? I swallowed hard. Blake, I need your help. Can we meet? There was a pause. Of course. Tomorrow morning, at the office. Perfect, thank you. As I hung up, guilt gnawed at me. Was I betraying Ethan by confiding in Blake? But then I remembered Ethan's cold eyes, his cutting words. No, I decided. I needed an ally, someone who could help me make sense of this mess. I glanced at the spa passes on the nightstand. Maybe a weekend alone was exactly what I needed. Time to think, to plan my next move. As I packed my bag, I heard Ethan's heavy footsteps on the stairs. My heart raced. Would he apologize? Try to make amends? But he passed our room without a word, the guest room door slamming shut behind him. In that moment, I made a decision. This weekend wasn't just about relaxation. It was about reclaiming my life, my happiness. And when I returned, things would change. One way or another, I would confront Ethan and get to the bottom of his behavior. Our marriage and my sanity depended on it. The spa weekend was supposed to be my refuge, a chance to clear my head and find some peace. Instead, it became the eye of the storm. I'd barely settled into my room when my phone buzzed. A text from Ethan. Where are you? I hesitated before replying. At a spa, Mom's treat. I needed some time to think. His response was immediate and biting. Of course, run away when things get tough. Typical. I tossed the phone aside, fighting back tears. This wasn't the man I married. What had happened to us? Unable to relax, I found myself drawn to the laptop I'd brought along. Work always calmed me. But as I opened my email, a notification caught my eye. It was from our shared cloud storage, alerting me that Ethan had uploaded new files. Curiosity got the better of me. I clicked, expecting to see drafts of his latest writing project. Instead, I found a folder labeled Anne's Downfall. My heart raced as I opened it. Inside were detailed plans, strategies to undermine my career. There were emails to my competitors offering insider information, fake reviews of my designs ready to be posted online, even a draft of a scathing exposé about my company's supposed unethical practices. I felt sick. This went beyond simple resentment. This was a calculated plan to destroy everything I'd worked for. With shaking hands, I called my mother. Mom, I choked out when she answered. I need you. An hour later, she burst into my room, concern etched on her face. I showed her what I'd found, watching as shock turned to anger in her eyes. Oh, Anne, she breathed. I can't believe Ethan would do this. What do I do, Mom? I whispered, feeling lost. She squared her shoulders, a fierce look in her eyes. You fight back. This isn't just about your marriage anymore. This is your life's work he's threatening. As we talked, a plan began to form, but I needed more information, someone who knew the industry inside and out. I'm going to call Blake, I decided. He might have insights we're missing. Mom nodded, squeezing my hand. Good idea. I'll go get us some coffee. This might be a long night. As soon as she left, I dialed Blake's number. He answered on the second ring. Anne? Is everything okay? I took a deep breath. Blake, I need your help. It's about Ethan. There was a pause. I was afraid of this, he said softly. Anne, there's something you need to know. For the next 20 minutes, Blake filled me in on what he'd observed over the past few months. Ethan's increasingly erratic behavior at industry events, whispered conversations with my rivals, attempts to access confidential files. I didn't want to believe it, Blake finished. But Anne, I think Ethan's jealousy has turned into something dangerous. As I hung up, my mind was reeling. The pieces were falling into place, painting a picture I didn't want to see. Mom returned, taking in my shell-shocked expression. What is it, honey? I looked up at her, suddenly feeling very small. Mom, I think my marriage is over. She sat beside me, pulling me into a tight hug. Oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. As I cried in my mother's arms, a strange calm settled over me. The path ahead was clear now, painful as it might be. I pulled away, wiping my eyes. I need to go home, I said, my voice stronger than I felt. I have to confront Ethan before he can do any more damage. Mom nodded, her eyes filled with a mixture of sorrow and pride. You're right, and I'll be right there with you every step of the way. As we packed up my things, I steeled myself for the confrontation to come. This wasn't just about saving my marriage anymore. It was about protecting my life's work, my passion, my future. Ethan had made his choice. Now it was time to make mine. The drive home from the spa was a blur of conflicting emotions. Anger, hurt, and fear battled for dominance as I gripped the steering wheel, my mother's supportive presence beside me, a small comfort in the storm of my thoughts. As we pulled into the driveway, I saw Ethan's car. My heart raced. This was it. The moment of truth. "Are you sure you want to do this now?" Mom asked, concern etching her features. I nodded, steeling myself. "I have to, Mom, before I lose my nerve." We entered the house, the air thick with tension. Ethan emerged from his study, surprise flickering across his face at the sight of my mother. "Anne? Leah? What's going on?" I took a deep breath. "We need to talk, Ethan, now." His eyes narrowed, darting between us. "What's this about?" "I know everything," I said, my voice surprisingly steady. "The journal, the sabotage plans, all of it." Ethan's face paled, then flushed with anger. "You went through my private things?" "Don't you dare turn this around on me," I snapped. "You've been plotting to destroy my career, my life's work. How could you?" He laughed bitterly. "Your life's work? What about mine, Anne? While you've been climbing the ladder of success, I've been stuck in your shadow, watching my dreams crumble." "That's not fair, Ethan," Mom interjected. "Anne has always supported your writing." "Stay out of this, Leah," Ethan snarled. "This is between me and my wife." "Don't speak to my mother that way," I warned, anger rising. "She's here because I need her support. Because my own husband has turned into someone I don't even recognize anymore." Ethan's face contorted with rage. "Oh, poor Anne, always the victim, aren't you? Well, let me tell you something. I'm tired of playing second fiddle to your ambitions. I'm tired of being Anne's husband instead of Ethan Carter, writer." "So you decided to destroy everything I've worked for?" I asked, incredulous. "Ethan, I loved you. I supported you. How could you do this to me?" For a moment, I saw a flicker of the man I married in his eyes. Regret, maybe even shame, but it was quickly replaced by cold determination. "I did what I had to do," he said quietly. "You don't understand what it's like, living in your shadow." "Then help me understand," I pleaded. "Talk to me, Ethan. We can work through this." He shook his head. "It's too late for that, Anne. I've already set things in motion." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" Ethan's smile was cruel. "Check your email. I'm sure your little empire is crumbling as we speak." With shaking hands, I pulled out my phone. My inbox was flooded with panicked messages from my team. Leaked designs, false accusations, stock prices plummeting. I looked up at Ethan, horror and disbelief warring within me. "How could you?" He shrugged, a hint of satisfaction in his eyes. "Now you know how it feels to watch your dreams die." In that moment, something inside me snapped. The last thread of hope I'd been clinging to disintegrated. "Get out," I whispered. "What?" "I said, get out," I shouted, tears streaming down my face. "We're done, Ethan. I want a divorce." Shock registered on his face, quickly replaced by anger. "Fine," he spat. "You'll be hearing from my lawyer." As he stormed out, slamming the door behind him, I collapsed into my mother's arms, sobs racking my body. "It's okay, sweetheart," she soothed. "You're strong. You'll get through this." As my tears subsided, a new determination took hold. Ethan might have landed the first blow, but this fight was far from over. I straightened up, wiping my eyes. "Mom, I need to make some calls. It's time to salvage what's left of my company and my reputation." She nodded, pride shining in her eyes. "That's my girl. What's your plan?" I took a deep breath, my mind already racing with possibilities. "First, I'm calling Blake. We need to do damage control. Then, I'm going to show Ethan and the world that I'm not so easily defeated." As I dialed Blake's number, I felt a strange sense of calm. The worst had happened, and I was still standing. Now, it was time to fight back. The next few days were a whirlwind of damage control and sleepless nights. Blake had been a godsend, working tirelessly alongside me to mitigate the fallout from Ethan's sabotage. But the strain was taking its toll, and I knew we needed a breakthrough. As I pored over financial reports in my home office, my phone buzzed. It was Marion. "Anne, dear, we need to talk. Come to the house, now." My stomach churned. The last thing I needed was another confrontation with Ethan's mother. But something in her tone made me pause. This felt different. When I arrived at their family home, Marion ushered me in without a word. In the living room, I found Ethan slumped on the couch, his eyes red-rimmed and unfocused. "What's going on?" I demanded, my guard up. Marion sighed heavily. "It's time for the truth to come out. All of it." Over the next hour, a story unfolded that shook me to my core. Ethan's resentment hadn't just been about my success. He'd been struggling with depression for years, self-medicating with alcohol and pills. His sabotage plans were born from a toxic mix of jealousy, desperation, and substance-induced paranoia. "Why didn't you tell me?" I whispered, tears stinging my eyes. Ethan finally looked at me, his face a mask of shame. "I couldn't bear for you to see me as weak. You were so strong, so successful. I thought if I could just bring you down a notch, I'd feel like a man again." The anger I'd been holding onto began to crumble, replaced by a confusing mix of pity and betrayal. "Ethan, we could have faced this together. Why didn't you trust me?" "Because I was a coward," he said, his voice breaking. "And now I've destroyed everything." Marion stepped in, her usual sharpness softened by concern. "Anne, I know my son has hurt you deeply, but he needs help. Professional help. Will you support him in getting it?" I felt torn. Part of me wanted to walk away, to let Ethan face the consequences of his actions alone, but another part remembered the man I'd fallen in love with, the kind and supportive partner he'd once been. "I'll help," I said finally. "But not as your wife, Ethan. That chapter of our lives is over." He nodded, a mix of relief and sorrow in his eyes. "I understand, and Anne, I'm so sorry for everything." As I left the house, my mind was reeling. I'd come seeking confrontation and found, what? Closure? Understanding? It didn't erase the pain or the damage done, but it shifted something inside me. Back at home, I found my mother waiting, concern etched on her face. "How did it go, sweetheart?" I collapsed into her arms, the emotions of the day finally overwhelming me. Through tears, I recounted everything I'd learned. "Oh, Anne," she sighed, stroking my hair. "What a mess. What are you going to do now?" I pulled away, wiping my eyes. "I don't know, Mom. Part of me wants to help Ethan, but I can't forget what he did, and I still have a company to save." Just then, my phone rang. It was Blake. "Anne, turn on the news. Now." With shaking hands, I grabbed the remote. The headline made my blood run cold. "Fashion mogul Anne Carter accused of fraud and insider trading." "No," I whispered, horror washing over me. "This can't be happening." As the reporter detailed the allegations against me, I felt the ground crumbling beneath my feet. Everything I'd worked for, everything I'd built was on the verge of collapse. "Anne?" My mother's voice seemed far away. "Anne, what do we do?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. This was it. The moment that would define everything. I could crumble under the weight of it all, or I could fight back with everything I had. Looking at my mother, then at Ethan's journal still sitting on my desk, I made my decision. "We fight," I said, my voice stronger than I felt. "We fight with the truth." As I dialed Blake's number, I knew the real battle was just beginning. But for the first time in months, I felt a glimmer of hope. The truth was on my side, and I was done being a victim. It was time to reclaim my life, my career, and my future. No matter what it took. The next morning, I woke to a media frenzy. My phone was buzzing incessantly with calls from reporters, business partners, and panicked employees. The accusations of fraud and insider trading had spread like wildfire, threatening to consume everything I'd built. I steeled myself and dialed Blake's number. "We need to move fast," I said the moment he picked up. "Can you meet me at the office in an hour?" "I'm already here," he replied, his voice tight with tension. "Anne, it's bad. The board is calling for an emergency meeting. They're talking about forcing you out." My heart raced. "Not if I can help it. I'm on my way." As I rushed to get ready, my mother appeared in the doorway. "I'm coming with you," she said, her tone brooking no argument. "You shouldn't face this alone." In the car, I briefed her on my plan. "We need to prove that Ethan was behind this. His journal, the evidence of his sabotage. It's our only chance." Mom nodded, her face set with determination. "We'll make them listen, sweetheart. The truth will come out." At the office, chaos reigned. Employees huddled in groups and whispering and casting worried glances my way. I held my head high as I strode to the conference room, where the board awaited. The moment I entered, I could feel the hostility. Richard, the head of the board, spoke first. "Anne, in light of these serious allegations, we believe it's in the company's best interest for you to step down immediately." I took a deep breath. "Before you make any decisions, there's something you need to see." I placed Ethan's journal on the table. "My husband has been sabotaging this company out of jealousy and resentment. These fraud allegations are a result of his actions, not mine." Skeptical murmurs filled the room. I pressed on, detailing Ethan's plot, his struggles with depression and substance abuse, and his confession. As I spoke, I could see doubt creeping into their eyes. Just then, the door burst open. It was Ethan, looking wild-eyed and disheveled. "Anne, stop! You can't do this!" The room fell silent. I stood my ground facing him. "It's over, Ethan. The truth is coming out. All of it." He lunged forward, grabbing for the journal. In the scuffle that followed, pages scattered across the floor. As board members rushed to intervene, I caught sight of Marion in the doorway, her face a mask of shock and dismay. "Ethan, that's enough!" she cried, her voice cutting through the chaos. He froze, turning to face his mother. "Mom, I didn't mean for it to go this far." In that moment, something in Marion seemed to crumble. She stepped forward, addressing the board. "My son needs help. He's been struggling for a long time, and I enabled him. I thought I was protecting him, but I was wrong. Anne is innocent. All of this, it's Ethan's doing, and mine for not stopping it sooner." The room fell silent as the weight of her words sank in. I felt a mix of vindication and sorrow wash over me. Richard cleared his throat. "Anne, we owe you an apology and our full support in clearing your name." Relief flooded through me, but it was short-lived. As security escorted Ethan out, he turned to me, his eyes filled with a mixture of rage and despair. "This isn't over, Anne. You'll pay for this. I swear. I'll make you regret the day you ever met me." As the door closed behind him, I felt a chill run down my spine. Despite the victory, I knew this was far from over. Ethan's threat hung in the air, a dark cloud over my moment of triumph. I turned to face the board, my resolve strengthening. "Gentlemen, we have a lot of work to do. Our company's reputation is at stake, and I intend to fight for it with everything I have." As we began to strategize, I couldn't shake the feeling that the real battle was just beginning. Ethan's words echoed in my mind, a sinister promise of things to come. But I was done being a victim. Whatever he had planned, I would be ready. The war for my life, my career, and my future was far from over, but for the first time in months, I felt truly alive. "Bring it on, Ethan," I thought. "I'm ready for whatever you throw my way." The weeks following the board meeting were a whirlwind of legal battles, press conferences, and sleepless nights. But slowly, surely, the truth emerged. My name was cleared, the company's reputation salvaged, and Ethan's actions exposed. I thought it was over. I was wrong. It was a crisp autumn morning when I arrived at the office, ready to unveil our new collection. The elevator doors opened, and I stepped out into chaos. Smoke billowed from the design studio. Alarms blared, and there, in the midst of it all, stood Ethan, a can of gasoline in one hand and a lighter in the other. "Ethan!" I gasped, my heart pounding. "What have you done?" His eyes, wild and unfocused, locked onto mine. "I told you I'd make you pay, Anne. This is your fault, all of it." As he ranted, I saw movement behind him. Blake was there, inching closer, a fire extinguisher in his hands. Our eyes met briefly, and I understood. I had to keep Ethan talking. "Ethan, please," I said, my voice steady despite my fear. "This isn't you. Think about what you're doing." He laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. "This is exactly who I am, Anne. The man you made me. Well, if I can't have success, neither can you." As he raised the lighter, Blake struck. The extinguisher's spray hit Ethan full force, knocking him off balance. In seconds, security swarmed in, subduing him. As they led Ethan away, his screams echoing through the halls, I felt a strange mix of pity and relief wash over me. It was truly over now. In the aftermath, as we surveyed the damage, I was struck by a realization. Despite Ethan's best efforts, he hadn't destroyed everything. The core of my work, my vision, remained intact. "Anne," Blake said, placing a hand on my shoulder. "What do you want to do?" I looked around at my team, their faces smudged with soot but filled with determination. I thought of my mother, of Marion, of everyone who had supported me through this ordeal. "We rebuild," I said, my voice growing stronger with each word. "We take what's left and make it better than ever." The next few months were grueling, long days, longer nights, and countless challenges. But with each obstacle overcome, I felt myself growing stronger, more confident. Finally, the day of our revamped collection launch arrived. As I stood backstage, ready to present to the world, I felt a tap on my shoulder. It was Marion. "Anne," she said, her eyes brimming with tears. I wanted to apologize for everything, and to thank you for not giving up on Ethan, even when I couldn't see what was happening." I hugged her tightly, feeling years of tension melt away. "We all did the best we could, Marion. Now, it's time to look forward." As I stepped onto the runway, the lights blinding and the crowd hushed, I felt a sense of peace wash over me. I had weathered the storm, faced my darkest fears, and come out stronger. My voice rang out, clear and confident. "Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you not just a new collection, but a testament to resilience, to the power of truth, and to the strength we find in adversity." The crowd erupted in applause, but I barely heard it. In that moment, I saw my journey flash before my eyes. The pain, the betrayal, the fear, but also the love, the support, and the unwavering belief in myself that had carried me through. As I took my final bow, I caught sight of my mother in the front row, tears streaming down her face, pride shining in her eyes, and I knew with absolute certainty that this was just the beginning. I had lost a husband, but I had found myself. I had faced destruction, but created something beautiful from the ashes. And as I stood there, basking in the glow of my triumph, I realized that the greatest revenge wasn't in tearing others down, but in rising, phoenix-like, from the flames of adversity. This was my story, my victory, and I was ready for whatever came next. As the curtain fell, I smiled. The future was bright, and it was mine to shape. Let the next chapter begin.